Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Championship Check-In podcast with myself, Benjamin Bloom, and EFL pundit extraordinaire Sam Parkin. He was a pretty good footballer as well, into the bargain. We have loads and loads to talk about from round 37. But Sam has pointed out, I didn't put anything about a managerial change into the running order. So before we even get to Parkin's pick, we're going to screw up the script, Sam. I'm not even going to say hello to you, mate. I'm going to say Big Val Ismael out, Tom Cleverley in. Let's avoid the jokes and the cliches about Watford changing managers every 5 minutes. And let's have your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's probably people very better informed to speak about it at length rather than me. But I suppose I'd say it's a little bit of a surprise, not the timing now, but given that everyone seemed relatively comfortable and quite happy at times this season, which was a bit of a rarity for Watford fans. I think it took us all by surprise that Watford were playing a completely different style to what we anticipated, with Valérien Ismael going in, who'd had good success at Barnsley, not so much at West Bromwich Albion, but we thought it was going to be very direct. We thought it was going to be very high line, and it's been kind of anything but. They've probably been, quite possession heavy, really. I think the lack of a striker was a really proven striker has maybe been a bit costly with the most recent set of results. And given that he looked to be backed, was it the back end of the year or the start of this year with a new contract? It is surprising that obviously they've decided it's no longer working. But by all accounts, the most recent performances have been absolutely dismal, and history shows you that Watford tend to change. I think there's obviously a much bigger picture here, and that's a conversation about the ownership and about the model that's been in place. And of course, the owner has done some good. They had some brilliant times. I was at the cup final when they got there. I was at the semi-final when they beat Wolves, if memory serves me right. Obviously, some huge scalps in their Premier League years. They frequently took. But I think, there's clearly a difficulty getting the chemistry right between player and manager, and also getting that real support from the supporters, and that I think boils down to the ownership, and there being a huge chasm between the supporters and the people at the club. And I think now that a lot of the supporters would probably want to change, despite obviously those successful years in the top flight.
What about Cleverley, interim boss? The statement was very clear to stay. I think just before we came on, just forgive me, I just saw four faces on there. I don't know who their staff are, but they've given him staff. What are your thoughts on that? Short term, mid term, long term, if it works out for you?
Well, I've always felt the players at Watford have had too much power, and I think if that's the dynamic, what chance have you got as a manager going in there if you know that a certain amount of players are liable to down tools, and then your jobs are obviously going to be in jeopardy? And I think that has absolutely happened at Watford over a long period of time. The reason I say that is obviously Tom Cleverley has been one of those players at the club. And I'm not saying that he's not a good professional, and there wouldn't have been good professionals within those squads. Absolutely. You think of someone like Ben Foster, you think of someone like Livermore, obviously, I think Sarr and Pedro, for example, of some of the players that have come in from different leagues at really young ages, have been exceptional players for Watford. Some of the defensive players as well, Sirialta springs to mind. I think was pretty good in one of those promotion years. Cabaselli as well. So I think there are examples. So I think what I'm trying to say probably is that Tom Cleverley will know what the problems have been over a long period of time, and he'll probably try and get them united for these games that remain, and probably just play. I don't know if they'll be, not pragmatic is not the right word, but he'll try and get them fighting, I think, and try and get the supporters on board. Probably try and make it a little bit more attacking, bit more free scoring, bit more entertaining in the final third. But basically, they need some wins and they need some points, don't they? Very, very quickly. Otherwise, you know, like so many of the teams in the last few weeks, everyone is looking over their shoulders because of the amount of points that the teams at the bottom of the table have managed to accumulate over the last few weeks.
There you go. Another managerial change at Watford. I spoke for 16 minutes on this yesterday, so I'm going to say absolutely nothing. That's Sam's take. You can.
That was quite long-winded, that as well, wasn't it, mate? I got that down to about 2 minutes, probably. It was quite. It felt quite long-winded in my mind when it was coming out.
It always does when it's coming out your own mouth, doesn't it? You're like, hurry up, come on. But no, that's Sam's take, and you can get mine elsewhere on the channel. Let's look back now to round 37. Sam, we need a Parkin's pick from this little lot of results. Wednesday 0, Leeds 2 on Friday night. It was Cardiff 2, Ipswich 1 in the Saturday lunchtime. Blackburn 1, Plymouth 1, Hull 2, Leicester 2, Millwall 1, Birmingham 0, Norwich 5, Rotherham 0, Preston 1, Stoke 2, QPR 0, Borough 2. It was Southampton 4, Sunderland 2, Watford 1, Coventry 2. And we had a double game Sunday, Huddersfield 1, West Brom 4, Bristol City 1, Swansea 0. And here we go. I'm coming to you, Sam, for Parkin's pick. What are you thinking, Sam? You're quite spoiled for choice this week, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I got my blue on, and unfortunately, it's not for QPR today. And I actually could have fetched a match-worn short from about 10 yards from where I'm sitting now.
There you go.
Talk about London's second best club in blue. EFL club in blue, Millwall and their resurgence under Neil Chopper Harris.
You nearly stitched yourself up with your Chelsea roots then, didn't you? Probably. I love that. So, Sam, as always on this podcast, we want to try and dig into your brain and your, hundreds of games of experience and not just say what everyone else will be saying. What everyone else will be saying is, wow, new manager bounce, 10 points in 4 games. Millwall moving up the table. Are they clear of trouble? Fine. My question to you, Sam, how has he done it?
Yeah, I think this is quite a difficult one, mate, to get too complex about, to be honest. So I'm getting my caveat in now. I don't think there's been too many surprises, has there? You look at the shape there. Obviously, they were playing something of a 3-4-2-1 under Joe Edwards, if memory serves. That was, I think, quite flexible under his management. He didn't stick to one style, but one kind of setup. But latterly, that is what he's gone for. So you've got 2 very hard-working wide players there. The 2 midfield players, I think, is interesting. If you think back to, I think it was last week's podcast, I spoke about Casper De Norre possibly coming back in for this game to give them a little bit of creativity, which has still been, evident, that lack of creativity in the games that they've been taking maximum points from. But I don't think he was even in the 18. I think Neil Harris did speak of him post-match to say that he has been training well, but at the moment, Saville, obviously a player he knows really well, and Billy Mitchell are getting that nod in that department. And I think, played pretty well again on this occasion. Mitchell, someone who divides opinion, I think had a good game. Saville, that combination, him and Tanganga, has supplied a couple of massive goals away at Southampton and again at the weekend. And you cannot neglect ever that set-piece threat. I think Millwall and Ipswich just joint second to Cardiff in that regard. And you look at, I suppose, a lack of front players, a lack of options for Neil Harris. The key to them getting enough points in this division is going to be about clean sheets and finding a way to score. And invariably, set pieces are going to be a really fruitful avenue for them. So, yeah, I don't think there was loads in this game at the weekend. I think there's been some improvement from some individuals. I think Tanganga's one that I saw live a couple of times early on, and he looked a little bit uncomfortable playing the type of football that Joe Edwards wanted Millwall to play under him. So, yeah, there's definitely an improvement in him, and that's probably because it marries quite well with Neil Harris and how he wants to set up his team.
A more simplified brief has been asked of and that's no criticism of the Millwall players. Not only might it be a more simplified brief, but it's one that I think that fan base buys into a lot. Just fits a lot better that style with that fan base, doesn't it? And what they expect from their players.
Yeah, you've got that, and then you've got a group of players where the majority will know exactly how Neil Harris and David Livermore work, and exactly what they'll want them to execute on the pitch. I think that's probably also been evident with the lack of changes as well. That's partly due to circumstances in terms of player availability, but he wants that core of 12, 13 players. I would suggest Neil Harris that he's going to make maybe 1 or 2 changes each week and trust those players, try and build those relationships with them. But of course, you know, we'd be kidding ourselves if we're not saying that a lot of this is just down to organisation on the training ground and good old school motivation, and that's what we're seeing. I think the majority of the games, apart from Southampton, where they obviously had to give up a few chances, there's been very few chances on the Millwall goal. I don't remember there being too much in this game, and again, you know, with Jake Cooper, someone that he'll trust implicitly, and Tanganga. Joe Bryan, I thought, was a really good capture in the summer. He's not had a brilliant season, but him and Leonard, I think there's enough there to continue, especially with the games on the horizon, to be pretty stodgy defensively and not need the necessity to get loads of goals. But there you go. I've spoken for a couple of minutes. I've tried to give you a few little ingredients as to why, but I think we all know the main reason, and that's a unified Den in the next few weeks under someone that rightly is absolutely loved in that part of the world. You know, I for one was, not affected hugely because it doesn't directly affect me, but seeing someone that I played with a long time ago and someone who I watched score so many goals for that club and manage them so successfully, to be getting the stick he was towards the end of his previous tenure, there's something quite beautiful about him, seeing him back there and fist pumping and getting them all going again.
Is this is it too early to give a tick in the box to the ownership? Because when we were talking about you were in front of the problems that Joe Edwards were having. We talked about that before it all went down, and I said, "Oh, you know, man, what a big call to take out Rowett, and obviously crossing the box, a big L for the hire in the middle." Is it too early to say the ownership's now kind of not necessarily redeemed themselves, but certainly brought back some credit with the fan base?
I'm like hugely conflicted about that, I suppose. Just because, you know, I cover a lot of games at Millwall, and I know, you know, budgetary wise and in terms of resources, you know, it's incredibly difficult for Millwall probably to have the reality that they could get in the Premier League in the next few years. And I know people will point at Luton and say, look what they've achieved. But I think when we spoke on this topic early part of the season, Ben, you said, yeah, but look how they recruit. I think it was you anyway. And look what their strategy is. And absolutely, I think if you contrast between the two clubs, that's what Mill will have to get to. And along with that, I'm not sure you'll get out of the division being so one-dimensional as they were maybe previously under Harris. And it's probably an argument, but maybe under Gary Rowett as well. I think you have to have slightly better footballers in some of your departments. So that's why I'm conflicted, because, listen, if Neil Harris keeps Millwall in the division by a distance, do I want him to... It doesn't matter what I think. Do I believe he should be at the club at the start next season? Absolutely, he should. But is that going to give them, I don't know, the impetus to have that alignment from the boardroom to the management to improve the squad in a way that's going to get them into the promotion shake-up? I'm not so sure you can do it playing that football. There may be examples, and I'm open to people that watch this to tell me about teams that have done it playing. But I just think, you know, when you're trying to improve the excitement levels, the attacking nature of the side, you know, that's all got to be done over a longer period. And then that's why as bad as the results were under Joe Edwards, I was still like, oh, that's a bit of a missed opportunity. You know, if they could have just seen it through and maybe just stayed in the division by hook or crook, then January would have been really interesting. And next season would have been really interesting to see if they could become a bit of everything. That passion, that incredible support when it's going well, but also a team that all of a sudden has a bit more craft and a bit more wow factor. So we'll see.
We will indeed, and we'll clip that one out. We always have good discourse with the Millwall fans.
I don't do that. I just get stick. Don't do that.
Yeah, you won't.
Get caned.
Won't. You absolutely won't. No.
I think, but I just finish on that. You know, I think the most honest and balanced and ardent Millwall supporter would say, "Kai, it's a tricky period in the club's history." Yeah, I mean, like Crystal Palace down the road, albeit Premier League and established Premier League, they've been in this kind of predicament for 5 years, haven't they? Cool, we just got to win 1-0 every week and rely on the back five, soaking up copious amounts of pressure to get us over the line. And there's a bit of that at Millwall, isn't there? It's getting that balance, isn't it, between being exciting and also staying in the division or showing a little bit more intent. So I'd be interested to know what the Millwall fans want ultimately, and would it be, Neil in charge with a bit of a blank canvas in the summer to make that surgery, which I think the squad definitely needs, doesn't it? There's going to be quite a lot of changes there in the summer. Do they want Neil to do that and build a squad that could potentially challenge, or do they want to see that big sea change once he's achieved the great escape?
Get your thoughts in the comments. Neil Harris and Millwall on fire. And speaking of on fire, let's go to Worldie of the week. This segment goes in fits and starts, doesn't it? Poor last week. Much better this week, Sam. Talk to me about your favourite goals in round 37 of the EFL Championship.
Yeah, really good week. And because I've rambled on there about Millwall, I'll keep this brief. I'll give you a top three, and it didn't even make your shortlist. One of these, poor from you. I just think Southampton, Sunderland's passed you by, mate. You were too you're too obsessed with wiping away those tears off your grid after those two late goals.
Humanising the YouTube comments here. That's what I've been getting at all week. I didn't expect it from you, buddy.
Mate, I thought you took those two last-minute goals or the 20-minute injury time goals in good faith, mate.
We'll get to that in the next segment, Parkin.
Yeah, but you have I don't know why, but you've neglected Southampton, Sunderland, which
apologies.
I thought some brilliant goals, and Rothwell coming on again and getting himself a brace. I think that's the second time he's come on and saved Russell Martin's bacon. So his first was a really nice strike. I wanted to mention that one. But my top three in no particular order: Yukuzlu, West Brom,
beautiful
Thunder Bastard from you, arrowed, wasn't it? Just didn't move. Yeah, like amazing strike. I really like Bellingham's in that aforementioned game. Lovely feet and kind of awareness to bring the ball inside and open up the opportunity. Then a brilliant curled finish, like some of those goals we've spoken of already this season that just started so wide, curled in beautifully. But I think probably because of the amount of worldies he's scored, and I think this one could be the best one, I'm going to go for Sainz at Norwich in the win over Rotherham. Another brilliant goal from him.
Really well deserved, because he's been second place about 8 times, hasn't he? And he was wrongly red carded, wasn't he, in midweek, and that got rescinded. Hence, he was allowed to play in this game. And I just think there's quite a good narrative around Sainz, but could have had Sarah as well in that game. Why have you got Sainz at number one?
Again, I think the kind of way he drives, manipulates the ball as well, and then he's just such a clean striker. It was the goal at Anfield that I think it was a week we were maybe a bit short of a few fixtures. His goal there, very similar to this one, actually. That was the one that it was unfortunate to not get the nod. But yeah, I think the touch and the little bit of approach play as well, and marry that with the strike, which is phenomenal. I think he's not just smashing it in general direction of the target either. I think
No.
there's a knowingness of how good he is from distance, and he wants to put it where he's smashing them. So no, I thought it was a brilliant goal. Any others I've missed? Kiefer Moore's I liked. Didn't really think he probably had that in his armoury. And obviously the Sarah goal, which aesthetically was incredibly pleasing, wasn't it? Like it was kind of on the rise, was it not? And he just caught it in the nick of time. Perfect contact, and obviously it went in beautifully into the top corner, rolling around the net. So yeah, that was a lovely one, but obviously a little bit closer in and not as tough as the Sainz goal.
Borja Sainz, deservedly, after weeks of being snubbed and accusations that we hate Norwich. There you go. We don't. Brilliant goal from Sainz. And it's going to be no surprise to anyone that we're bringing back the Meltdown Moments segment this week. And it's going to be no surprise to everyone where we're going with it, Sam. Here we go then. Make me relive it again.
I don't even know if I've read the small print here. I presume you're wanting to prompt me to say Ipswich's late collapse. And I suppose the bigger picture is, have they fully handed the initiative to Leeds United to stride off into the distance now?
Yeah, we'll start with Ipswich, Sam, because obviously Leeds got a win, Southampton got a win as well. Leicester with a draw at the top, and then we'll get into the top four. Where are you with this? Are you looking at this as a freak stoppage time where you're fairly well in control? I think the most sensible views watching that game would have said if Ipswich had got the win, it would have been one of those where we're all saying, oh man, they just find a way, don't they? They didn't play that well, but they found a way to get the 3 points, which is what good teams do. But it was just chaos, wasn't it? Ipswich got deeper and Cardiff put the balls in. They bounced for them and they got a couple of goals. And you have to show humility and defeat if you're an Ipswich fan and say, okay, it can happen. Where are you between it being a freak that you can put to one side and say that won't happen often and hopefully won't happen again for Ipswich's sake between now and the end of the season? Or, you know, Ipswich lost away at Preston, lost away at Cardiff. You know, could this affect them more? Start with Ipswich and then we'll look at the top four more broadly.
Can I say that it's both?
You can.
I'd be interested to know what Kieran McKenna's like immediate reaction and you know his response has been to it this morning. You know, I think we're in a moment in time now where everyone pours over.
He looked pissed off at the end. Yeah, I don't know with whom, but someone's probably getting it this morning. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know where he'll be with it. You know, whether he'll pour over the data from that game. I'm sure you know that they do that. You know, after every game. But how much will he think that was, you know, part of this, or if it was just a bit of a freak or one of these results that's liable to happen? I mean, they've won, I think, 7 games away from home by the odd goal. So when you look at that, this is very out of character for the way they've performed from the start of the season. I'll just give you a few thoughts here. You can maybe jumble them into some kind of order or some kind of thought process. The substitutions obviously have been hugely impactful for Ipswich, but what it did on Saturday from my position was
talking about Big Keeper being on the near post for that corner.
Yeah, of course, it left them light. Twanzebe, I think, was still on the bench as well. So you could argue, and I don't know if this is the way that Ipswich have ever gone this season, but you could argue there was room maybe for an extra centre half, or certainly someone who could have combated the aerial threat, which unknowingly, actually, until the last week, I think I didn't realise how fruitful Cardiff were from set pieces, far and away the most in the division. So that is an argument. And I think there's a couple of things going on here. You know, managers want to keep players that are impactful and in form involved. And I'm not saying that's, you know, a sentimental reason that Keith Moore's come off and Al Hamady's come on, but there's no doubt that Al Hamady deserves to be getting minutes at the moment for Ipswich because he's proven very quickly to have a big part to play. And obviously fatigue comes into it as well. You know, my last year or so, I was forever coming on in the last 5 minutes of games because the striker had ran his race. So there's a bit of that going on. And maybe as well, Ipswich know that when the game opens up, they can finish it. And he had all his, attacking changes on there. So I think that's a big argument. But I think if you flip it, you just say Cardiff are very good at set pieces. The depth of their squad is completely different to how it was in January. And a lot of these new players that have come in are looking the part. O'Dowda put into the mix there as well. Hasn't played since August, I don't think.
Really?
I think he's come on maybe the previous game, but obviously he's back fit now, and it's his goal that wins it. So, yeah, there was potential flaws maybe in how Ipswich went about it this weekend, but when you look at the bigger picture, they've been almost immaculate in these tight, tough away games, and one he's just going to have to write off as a bit of a freak and hope they can bounce back in what are two really winnable games.
So, I'm looking at it now, Sam. I wonder if you feel the same. I just look at Leeds and 11 wins in 12 games at this point in the season with 9 remaining. And everyone's got it circled now, Sam, because Leicester are in the FA Cup, that if Leeds were to beat Millwall, it's on Sunday next week, they go top of the table. And I just feel this momentum, and if you take everybody's trends into account, you can make a pretty reasonable argument that could Leeds now just push on through. Leicester dropped points at Hull, didn't they? How are you feeling about that in terms of Leeds at the moment and just banging the points out second to none?
Yeah, I think the Ipswich concession of goals, you'll be able to answer this. Would you just love a 1-0 at Portman Road in the next couple of games?
Not when you're talking, Sam, I happen to know I've got some good data on this on my phone. So when you're talking, I'm going to give you some data. But when people come to me, sorry to cut you straight off, but when people come to me and say, Ben, look at Ipswich's defence, teams who concede that many goals don't get promoted. And it's difficult to make an argument back, is it? Anyway, continue.
But also, like, to get that win in the league in the next few weeks or whatever, get a 1-0, 2-0 at Portman Road, that would give the players and probably the supporters the confidence about the playoffs, if it is indeed going to be playoffs as well, that they're not going to be just involved in a 7-5 semi-final thriller. To answer you about, absolutely, I think, there'll be people that will really fancy Leeds to overturn Leicester now. I think I've been saying for the last few weeks, and I will stick to it, that Leicester and Southampton had the hardest run-ins in my mind. But I wouldn't be willing to say now that Leeds have overtaken Leicester as my favourites for the title. What I will say is if Leeds can cut the deficit to a point, maybe 2, and we're talking about this with 4 games to go, I think there's a very, very realistic proposition that Leeds could win the title. West Bromwich Albion, Southampton, those 2 games at home, we know about that one. Preston and Blackburn, they're Leicester's last 4, I think, if I've got that the right way round. And I think if Leeds are still there when it gets to that real crunch time, then yeah, there's still the potential of a title race, but I wouldn't be willing to be that strong in it at this point. I still think, as Liam Rosenior said after the game at the weekend, I still think Leicester will probably just about have enough to win the title.
I've got the data from our guy, Chris, who's brilliant statistical guy on the Blue Monday podcast Telegram group. So Ipswich at the moment have conceded 49 goals. Southampton have actually conceded 47 as well. Would you believe it's our good friends, Norwich City, 58 most conceded in promotion. This looks like the data he's given me for Premier League era. And then Norwich again, with 57. West Brom 55. Barnsley, we're going back to 96, 55. So basically, Sam, I think the magic number is 60. That if you're a team that concedes 60 goals, history, and history doesn't always completely predict exactly what's going to happen. It gives us a bloody good idea, though, doesn't it? So yeah, that's what the data says to it, and it's certainly a reasonable argument. Can we just round out this chat and talk a bit about Southampton? They've won back-to-back games. They're 5 points behind with a game in hand, Sam. But my brain is now saying, with the fixture congestion, and we know there's far more important things when there's a building burning down next to Southampton Stadium than what it's going to do to their fixture list. But the knock-on effect of that is now, if Southampton do this, Sam, with a Preston game to be rescheduled and a game away to Leicester being rescheduled, when we already knew they also had to go to Ipswich and Leeds, this will be remarkable from Russ Martin if he can make the run now to take second. Yeah,
I think the psychology of having that outstanding run from so deep and then having the setbacks of the last few weeks, I wouldn't necessarily buy enormous amounts into it unless they had those fixtures. And when you contextualize that they've got Ipswich, Leicester and Leeds in the remainder, they're not going to have to be faultless, but they're going to have to be pretty remarkable.
7 points maybe from those three away trips.
So when you put that in context, then absolutely, it would be an amazing achievement. But they've got good players. They've got really good players.
Loads of them as well.
And they're very free scoring, and it doesn't really matter what the permutation is of that midfield or the forward players. And they got really strong bench. Signings have come in and had a good impact. Brooks and Rothwell I spoke of earlier. So it wouldn't completely surprise me, but I think because of the magnitude of some of the fixtures, for them to go on another pretty amazing run now would be some going. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them now, I think.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Sam. I think I'm a bit higher on the idea of Leeds pushing through and taking the title than you are. But am I concluding that we're kind of both edging towards, in whatever order, Leicester and Leeds being in the top two and Ipswich and Southampton being in the playoffs? That's kind of where I am today. But give me Easter and that could all change. No, am I right in saying that's where you are?
I think so. And there's just something within me, and I don't know if it's just because of the journey, like where Ipswich have come from, but I just think if that Bristol City game was the penultimate game of the season, I'll be like, it doesn't matter how you win, doesn't matter, you got 3 points. But with such a chunk of the season still to remain, so many points to be played for, I just think that's a little bit alarming. And I'm less worried about Saturday. I'm less worried about Saturday. I just don't think, playing poorly as they did in that game against Bristol City and getting over the line late in the game because of the impact of substitutes and because of that never say die attitude, I just don't think that'll maybe keep happening. If you're conceding so many goals, I think there's teams that are defensively better that Ipswich have still got to play who won't allow that. So yeah, that's, without me saying like Ipswich are the worst team defensively, because I think they are capable, as they've shown on the road, of performing. I think it is an issue, the amount of goals they're conceding.
Defences win titles, don't they, Sam? Yes, they do. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Give us a 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want to. You're allowed an opinion, and you're allowed to change your opinion as we go through the season. We'd love to hear yours in the comments. And remember, predicting somebody not to win the championship title doesn't mean that we have an irrational hatred of said team. You're allowed to like salt and vinegar crisps, Sam. That doesn't mean you hate prawn cocktail. You just might be preferring salt and vinegar on that.
You do well to find me a crisp that I don't like, mate, to be honest. do very well.
Go. Maybe this Walker's chat is pushing towards Leicester in the connection with the Walker's Stadium back in the day. But there we go. Sam, I'm completely off the cuff and off my format, and I don't know where the hell we go next. We're going to the relegation zone, which has been dominating our thoughts. It's time for Cause for Concern. Calmed down a bit this week, didn't it? Someone said to me or asked me, Ben, is that the relegation zone regressing to actually mental weeks? But with our Cause for Concern, I'll set you up, Sam, by bringing the table up. Massive win for Stoke, 6 points in 3 games for them, and for Millwall. Nobody else won, Sam. Who is our Cause for Concern?
Oh, we're going to have a chat about Birmingham today. Done a little bit of a favour. It's early to be asking for favours, but Huddersfield's capitulation in the second 45 in their game against West Bromwich Albion has kept them outside of the relegation zone. But yeah, I think Stoke City can have a week off. Let's chat about Birmingham.
Yeah, so I had a lot of Birmingham fans in the watch along as this was unfolding. And when Huddersfield scored, everybody knew the permutations. Second that ball crossed the line, Birmingham are in the bottom 3. And all season, Sam, not all season, but as it's been unfolding, I've kind of thought, okay, take out Eustace. Fine, let's see how that goes. Okay, put Rooney in. All right, fine. See how that goes. Rooney stinks the joint out. Okay, see how that goes. The whole time, Sam, I'm thinking, oh, well, they'll be all right, won't they? You know, they had a good transfer window and a good start to the season. That will see them through. It actually took for me to see them go below the line at halftime in that Huddersfield game to go, oh, my word, there's been chaos. The manager is not around for health reasons. And for the first time, I was like, oh, this is a problem, isn't it? How does that match up with your views on Birmingham?
Yeah, probably similar. Firstly, I'm getting quite annoyed, teams faltering, teams falling into the bottom 3 or the bottom 4, and all of a sudden supporters are like, oh, that's done. That's done. We're down. There was inevitability about it the last few months.
Like, it's a coping mechanism, Sam. You know it is.
Oh, but come on. Like, just support your team and hope, even if you are ranted for the next 10 games, that you can get a disgusting 1-0 on final day and stay in the division by a goal difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just so annoying. But you're probably right. It's probably a defense mechanism, reverse psychology, call it what you like. We spoke about the manager, didn't we? And of course, like that can be really impactful. I think not having him around. I'm sure, I don't know him, but I'm sure Mark Venus is, a good character. Been in the game for what, 3-4 decades or whatever. Loads of experience. Sometimes it can take on that little caretaker feel. School teacher, caretaker, supply teacher, whatever you call it. I'm not saying that he's not someone to be reckoned with or someone that's got authority. Just that's the facts. You want the manager, you want the front man on the touchline with you, especially in these situations. So that is a concern. Absolutely. The away form, if they're going to stay up, it's going to be about the home form. That's clear as day. I think they've had 1 defeat in their last 6, all competitions at St Andrews. So the form there is pretty good. A little bit concerned, obviously, both ends of the pitch, which is a very obvious thing to say, but all of a sudden they've been hit with injuries and suspensions at centre-half and a ball into the box, which you would expect Birmingham City to be able to defend. The last knock-ins of the game at Millwall, all of a sudden, is a massive problem. And that's probably down to A, the players that are missing, and B, maybe the lack of rhythm or conviction in the players that have come in. Opposite end of the pitch, memory serves, I think they scored 2 in each of Tony Mowbray's first 3 games in charge. Sequence of 8 games since then, they've only scored multiple goals twice. So there's been a drop-off there. Stansfield 1 in 8 games. Hogan nowhere near it at the moment. I think Jukovic obviously is just an impact, and you hope you're going to land one on his head. So I look at that lineup and I think back to last spring and what Sunderland were doing with all these diminutive, flair-playing attackers, Pritchard and Roberts and Jack Clark, and I see what Birmingham are trying to do, and there is something similar going on there, I think, with the attacking players that they've got, but they're not backing it up with goals and assists and too much creativity right now. So it's not to say it won't happen, but I think that's probably the facts at the moment. You've got some really good forward players in that lineup. Pritchard, ironically, at Sunderland during that period I was talking about, but you know, none of them are right at the top of their game right now, and they're going to need them to be, especially in the home games this week. Middlesbrough,
yeah. So
and
Borough at home, and then Watford at home, and then international break, and then go to QPR. Sam, I mean, we can't put it down to a 3-game run now, but that game in hand, when you look at a table that goes 38-38, 39-39, 41-41, 41, 43-43, that game in hand, everyone in the bottom half would love to have that game in hand, and they've got it tomorrow night as we're recording.
Yeah, of course. And I just, if you can get the team up again, I mean, and I'd like, the Birmingham fans come back at me on this. That would be really interesting. And I don't know from memory how close they've come to the drop in the last few seasons. I know invariably they finish 17th or 18th or whatever it is every season. But if I can just talk about one of the fundamentals just quickly, like the character of players that have been there and been in this situation previously, I'm not seeing loads in that 11 at the moment. And the squad, if you look at the 18, there is a bit more experience there, and there will be dotted around the squad, no doubt. I just think at the moment there's quite a lot of players that are probably in a quite unusual situation. So we will see. We will see what happens. Clearly, they want Bielik back. I think Sanderson got one more game to serve. Those two, absolutely from a physical standpoint, will improve you. Seen a lot of grief for Roberts at the weekend for the goal, and he's in a position where he can probably go and head it. But I think Bakuna was maybe marking Tanganga, which is a little bit of a mismatch to me straight off the bat, and I'm not sure. Roberts was kind of middle of the 6-yard box. He gets a shove from the goal scorer. So I think a few of them were complicit maybe in the goal. But again, I think that's probably, a product of having a few of your better headers of the ball missing at the moment.
There you go. So look, we could be sat here this time next week, Sam, and, they've got 4 points, or God forbid, they've got 6 points, and we're like, okay. The issue does seem down the bottom. We'll round this out because we need to move on. Is that it seems like every team now, apart from maybe Blackburn and Birmingham, have done a little 4-point splurge or a 6-point splurge over two or 3 games. So yeah, we will see how that pans out, and we're gonna start looking ahead now, Sam, into our round 38. My God, where has it gone? Fixtures. And we're gonna bypass the Birmingham and Middlesbrough game. Excuse me while I just get the fixtures up. And Sam's gonna pick from the weekend round of games, last one before international break. The early kickoff on Saturday, Swansea v Cardiff. We just mentioned Birmingham versus Watford, obviously play as well on the Tuesday. Is Ipswich versus Sheffield Wednesday, Middlesbrough versus Blackburn, Plymouth versus Preston, Rotherham versus Huddersfield, Stoke versus Norwich, Sunderland, QPR, West Brom, Bristol City, and then on Sunday, that's the big chance for Leeds to go top of the table. They play Millwall, and Sam, I believe so. Hull and Coventry and Leicester and Southampton, the 2 games that were due to be played, but obviously Coventry and Leicester are still in the FA Cup. I've done that off the top of my head. If I've got that in any way wrong, please correct me politely in the comments. But Sam, What we do need from you is a mouthwatering matchup. What are your thoughts, big guy?
Well, all of a sudden, a game that maybe a week ago didn't have much on it. Well, I say that. There's loads on it always, granted. But there may be something on it even greater now for one of these clubs. Swansea against Cardiff. And hot off the press, you didn't know this, I'm going to be there.
Yes, who are you working for?
TalkSport.
And mate, what are you summarising?
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. We did not know that when we wrote the format for this show. So I'm really looking forward to Sam's take on this post-game now.
I don't think I've been to one. Don't think I've been to the derby. I've certainly covered lots of games. I think I've done a Bristol City game at both, but I've not done a Swansea Cardiff. So, yeah, good one to tick off.
Yeah, very, very much so. Swansea obviously had a little splurge of 7 points in 3 games. And as we said with the relegation zone, anyone who hasn't done that at the moment is in massive trouble. Cardiff are in superb form with 4 wins on the trot. For my money, they just look a little bit too far off in terms of the playoffs, Sam. But I hear what you're saying. If that goes to, a 5-game streak and then we go into Easter and there's either a 6-4 or a 7-4 or 4 points in there, then maybe they could join up.
Yeah, I think we've had a season where everyone was like really optimistic at the start and they could be the surprise package, and then it plateaued enormously. Everyone wrote them off and they've come really strong again the last few weeks. I think every game they've won by just the odd goal. So again, they're not putting teams to the proverbial sword. But yeah, it was a really impressive victory, obviously, over Ipswich, no matter how it comes. And they come into this one, I would say, the more confident of the two sides, especially given the comfortable nature. Was it comfortable? No, there were 2 late goals, weren't there, in the reverse fixture? But yeah, obviously they won the game earlier on in the season, and they come against a Swansea side who, I don't know, kind of one of the teams in the division that if you offered them the opportunity to stop now and start planning for next season, they might very well take you up on that offer. I think this is a team that's going to look incredibly different next season. And I think Luke Williams, after that flurry of horrid fixtures and tough defeats, done really well to accrue some points over the last little few games. So, yeah, I think this will be really competitive. A few weeks ago, it had probably been 2 teams wildly out of form, still not loads riding on it. All of a sudden, Cardiff fans will be dreaming, and the Swansea supporters and players will have that motivation that every derby game brings, and they'll want to do their best for a team that I've seen the chairman, excuse me if I get any of this wrong, Swansea supporters, Andy Coleman, done a big statement this morning. I wouldn't describe it as a rallying call, but just to kind of some words about where they are, about the shortcomings, about the fans' frustration, and basically the necessity for patience, and some stuff obviously about Luke, how Luke Williams aligns with the playing style and how they've looked to improve the recruitment. I think he points at Ronald as being a plus in the window and maybe an indication of some kind of positive movement in the transfer market in the summer months. So yeah, and he speaks about Paul Watson quite a lot, who's the sporting director, basically the work that he's doing behind the scenes. So all is not well there is what I read from that. Like invariably, if someone in one of the higher positions in the club's coming out and speaking to the supporters at this stage of the season,
here the lady doth protest too much, right?
Yeah. So we'll see. What I know a few Swansea fans. There's a chap that lives locally to me, and yeah, Swansea mad. So I speak about the club quite often, and he's just been, yeah, what's the word, empathetic towards it this season. So I think there is a little bit of a gap between the supporters and the club that needs narrowed for them to be successful. But again, you go back to that appointment in the summer and you think, you know, if that's a serious club with aspirations of being successful again in the Championship and maybe one day getting back in the Premier League and enjoying those glorious times again, who on earth decided that Michael Duff was going to be the right fit for Swansea at this moment in time? And we're probably sitting here and talking about Swansea having an indifferent season because there've been some mistakes made.
Amen. If anyone can provide photographic or video evidence of on Saturday during this game, they've got the Sky feed on here, they've got my watch along here, and they've got Sam on TalkSport over here. We need all three on Saturday lunchtime for our mouthwatering matchup. So, yeah, quick plug for my watch along as well there, Sam. And check out Sam, obviously, on TalkSport for the mouthwatering matchup, which is Swansea versus Cardiff at 12:30 on Saturday. Here comes player to watch. This, to me, is a complete shoo-in. I think this guy is the most fun, brilliant to watch, informed player in the Championship at the moment. I could talk about him all day, but the listeners want to hear your take on the brilliant Mikey Johnston, the Flying Scotsman, who was at it again for West Brom. What a signing! What a player! Talk to me about him.
Yeah, he's been amazing, and I think the kind of important kind of moment or part of the season was West Brom improving those forward options. I think it was, you know, really required. Obviously, Sarmiento went off. They had the injuries to DK and Thomas Asante more recently, so it was important to replenish that area of the pitch, and like you couldn't have imagined he'd have had this impact. Obviously, saw him at QPR recently. I mean, it's so weird at the moment because, you know, you would say any other team that maybe it's not sustainable to not be creating much, or certainly in halves of football not be creating anything. At QPR, they had 3 shots, I think, in the game. And obviously he scored an outstanding goal, and Dean Garner gets another amazing goal. But they're not playing brilliant, West Brom, but they've got these clinical forward players. They've got someone in Johnston who's in just incredible, confident vein of form at the moment. So yeah, I like his single-mindedness to take people on, like him in one-on-one situations, wants to go forward, wants to take people out of the game. And yeah, he's showing a different array of finishing, isn't he, in his game as
Sam,
well. And
can I just come in there? Everyone's wise to this cut inside. And what did he do at the weekend for one of the goals? Outside and drove it in with his left foot. So yeah. You know, the defenders are doing all their prep on him to say, do not let him come in on his right foot, and he can go the other way as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, he's quite old-fashioned, isn't he, in that way, that he's kind of like a bit hunched over and, yeah, real dribbler. So, yeah, absolutely. Putting that goal in at the weekend on his left side, that'll put the seed of doubt even more so in the defender's mind. It was interesting QPR's setup against them because you got Jimmy Dunn playing as a right back at the moment, and they kind of build up in the back three. They push the left back on, so it's a little bit lopsided at times, the QPR setup, and he'd hardly had a kick until that moment. And it was just that kind of realization that despite Jimmy Dunn's performance has been really good, when you're up against one of the most informed wire players in the division, just that inability to get tight to him. And maybe that, as you said there, he's quite adept at going on the outside as well. I just felt that was going to be a deciding factor on that night. And it was so it proved, really, because West Brom far and away the second best team on display, but they got the individuals and none more so than him to get them points at the moment. So yeah, he could be one of the most vital players in the division over the next 2-3 months when we inevitably are talking about West Brom and their tactical setups for the playoffs. He could be that real game changer.
Sam, I'm conscious we're running long, but we haven't talked about the playoff picture. And I did just want to ask, in terms of the best signing in the January transfer window, I think I've got Johnston after the weekend just slightly ahead of Ugbo, but is it a competition between Ugbo to Sheffield Wednesday and Johnston to West Brom? And in the comments, let us know who's the best signing of the January window. That's where I am. What's your take?
The way my last few days have been, mate, there's no way I'm going to remember any other players. You'd have Kiefer Moore in the shortlist, would you not?
Yeah, that's a good shout.
You would have Sheffield Wednesday fans shouting Pervader as well.
Yeah,
I think he's not going to have the numbers, is he, to match those chaps? Who else have we had? Can't think of too many others that have been ripping it up. Can you?
No. Well, I mean, it was quiet. It was a fairly sort of soft.
QPR made some good signings that have impacted it. Definitely, you would look at it and maybe say if they were to survive the window that they had, would be one of the most successful. To answer your question, if West Brom get promoted and Johnston keeps going the way he is, he can have it. If Ugbo keeps Sheffield Wednesday in the division, if one happens and the other doesn't, our answer is definitive come the end of the season, right?
I totally agree. Just really quickly on the playoff picture, then it was a big win for West Brom because we're in this kind of position with the playoff race where if West Brom do make a misstep, it becomes 4 teams for 2 places. But while they just keep that 5-point gap that they've got there, we're looking at it as honestly right now, and it could change. Caveat. Coventry, Hull, and Norwich for that 6th place. Norwich are the hot hand at the moment, 24 points in 12. Hull 4 draws in a row. Coventry, you just get the feeling that whatever happens, they're not going to go away, are they? They never drop below a base level Coventry for too long, do they? Is that how you see the playoff picture?
Yeah, you can't rule out someone coming from deep. I have to get that in there. I'd be interested to know how Middlesbrough fans are feeling this morning, for example, with that. Is that the game in midweek, did you say?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they'd join the 53s if they win, won't they?
Yeah, be interesting to know how they're feeling. Yeah, but my gut says that it's a long shot for Preston. So therefore, talking about those teams that you just mentioned, I think there was a bit of excitement after Preston won well at Coventry the other week. Blitzed them in the first half, but I think that was a bit of a reality check at the weekend. And I think the form, you know, after that brilliant first 2 months of the season has been so indifferent until recently. It's hard to see them putting another run together. That's my gut. Interesting, really interesting. Stephen Schumacher, kind of, we know the way that he likes to play, but just made that a horrible battle, it sounds like, against Preston at the weekend and just came out the right side. And obviously that diminishes his mate's chance of getting in the playoffs. So can change. Absolutely, it can change, but today it looks like those 3 battling for that last position.
And I don't even want to say this out loud. Right now, stop the clocks. Southampton face West Brom, and by God, Ipswich versus Norwich in the playoff semi-finals. So you say it can change. I, for one, would very much advocate it changing. So there you go. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on the playoffs. We have gone long today. Let's try and get the quiz done, and then we will leave you all back to your lives. Sam, it's time for the weekly words. Right, where did we get to on the scores here? 16.5 to 12.5. So I'm feeling a bit like Preston or Middlesbrough at the moment, in that just doesn't look like I'm going to be able to make the comeback unless I go on a bit of a streak. Our questions, as ever, from the brilliant Fev, representing Bristol City as well. Fev's Football Analytics at Fev's Football on Twitter. Sam, would you like to go first, as in answer first? Would you like to go second?
I'll ask you your question first.
Let's do it.
Okay, it's called Possession is 9/10 of the law.
It is.
So your question, which team won at the weekend with the highest possession?
With the highest possession?
I mean, okay. I think I'm reading this correctly, because I think this is a bit of a tap-in myself.
Surely it's Southampton, isn't it?
Southampton in their 4-2 victory over Sunderland.
Yeah, which I was completely oblivious to when I was giving you the ideas for Worldie of the week. If Southampton have won, then it's likely. Although Norwich hammered Rotherham, didn't they? Let's go Southampton. Southampton.
Should have gone with your second thought.
Oh,
Norwich
for God's sakes.
City with 68%. However, and I quite like this to add a little bit of context, Plymouth had the highest possession in the division with 71%, but drew their game.
Oh, they played against 10 for a while, didn't they? Yeah. Okay. Well, bear that in mind then, Sam. Your question, which team, won at the weekend with the lowest possession?
Did you get the results up there?
I was looking at the results, yeah. Did you want to see them?
Who won? No, don't worry. I can have a look at it. Who won with the lowest possession? Cov. West Brom? No. Bristol. Oh, it's hard, isn't it? That's really hard. I will go for like a 45% Millwall win. No.
And this will surprise you. Bristol City had 27.
No way.
27% possession in their one.
Yeah, I mean, it's Swansea and it's Luke Williams, isn't it? So, yeah. If I had my time again, that's what I'd have gone for. That was poor. That was poor.
So did we both get 0 then for this week?
Yeah, that was pressure, wasn't it? Pressure got to me there.
Pressure. Thanks as ever for Fev. If you got one of them right, let us know in the comments. If anyone got both of them right, I'm terribly impressed. And if you are a data analyst for a club, you are not allowed to enter because we do know that some of you are watching. And thank everybody for watching today, the Championship Check-In podcast. One more round and then we get the international break. And then, my God, Sam, it's all going to go crazy for Easter and then a 3-game week straight after that. And that's pretty much going to be that. We're going to know 90% of what we need to know by then. But many a twist and turn. Last word from you, Sam.
Thanks for watching. Sorry if I rambled a bit, and no nasty comments about either of our attire in the comments.
Who's going to get all the comments about their attire out of me and you? Jesus Christ. Right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you in midweek for the prediction.